The bridge of the UES horizon hummed with quiet energy as Captain Jake Morrison stared at the strange signal on his main screen. 3 years into humanity's first deep space exploration mission, they had finally found what they were looking for. The signal was clearly artificial, clearly intelligent, and clearly not human. "Captain, the transmission is repeating every 12 minutes, said Communications Officer Ben Carter from his station. His fingers moved quickly over the console as he worked to clean up the signal. "It's coming from the Kepler 442 system, about 15 light-years from here," Morrison nodded slowly. After decades of searching the stars, humanity had dreamed of this moment, first contact with an alien civilization. He had imagined it would be more dramatic somehow. Instead, it felt almost ordinary, like receiving a radio call from another ship. "Can you decode it?" Morrison asked. "Already working on it, sir. The signal contains mathematical sequences and what looks like star charts. Whoever sent this knows we're here and wants to talk." Carter paused, listening to something in his earpiece. "Captain, I think I've got a translation matrix running. Give me another few minutes." Dr. Lisa Torres looked up from her science station. As the ship's xenobiologist, she had spent years preparing for this moment. Her hands shook slightly as she ran through first contact protocols on her tablet. "Captain, whatever we do, we need to be careful. We have no idea what their intentions are." "Agreed," Morrison said. He had been chosen to lead this mission partly because of his calm nature. While other captains might have rushed toward the alien signal, Morrison believed in taking things slow and careful. "Let's see what they have to say first." 20 minutes. Later, Carter announced he had a working translation. The bridge crew gathered around the main screen as strange symbols appeared, followed by English text below them. "Greetings, primitive carbon-based life forms of the third planet. We are the Veltar Consortium, representing the Galactic Cooperative of Civilized Species. Your recent expansion into space has been detected by our monitoring systems." Morrison raised an eyebrow at the word primitive, but said nothing. "First contact was not the time for wounded pride." The message continued. "As per cooperative law, your species is hereby invited to join our peaceful alliance of worlds. However, all new species must first complete a simple initiation challenge to prove their basic competence for space travel." "Initiation challenge?" muttered Sergeant Ryan Hayes from his position near the weapons console. As the ship's head of security, Hayes was naturally suspicious of anything that sounded like a test. The alien message displayed new information on the screen. Star charts showed a planet called Kethmore, located in a system only 2 weeks away. At their current speed? Below the charts, environmental data scrolled past. "The challenge is simple," the message read. "Survive on the world designated Kethmore for 30 standard days using only basic supplies. This moderately hostile environment will test your species' readiness for galactic civilization." Dr. Tony Wright, the ship's physician, was already analyzing the planetary data. "Let me see here," he said, pulling up the information on his medical scanner. "Gravity is 1.8 times Earth normal. Temperature range from -40 to +60 Celsius. Frequent electrical storms. Carnivorous plant life. Atmosphere is 15% oxygen." The bridge fell silent as everyone processed this information. Morrison expected his crew to look worried or concerned. Instead, he saw something else entirely. Hayes was frowning, but not with fear. He looked confused. "Captain," Hayes said slowly, "this doesn't sound that bad. I've done survival training in Alaska that was worse than this." Wright nodded in agreement. "The gravity is high, but manageable. The temperature range is actually better than some places on Earth. Antarctica gets colder, Death Valley gets hotter, and 15% oxygen? That's like being at high altitude in the Rocky Mountains." Torres was running calculations on her tablet. "The electrical storms could be a problem, but we have equipment to handle that. The carnivorous plants are interesting, but Earth has plenty of those too. Venus flytraps, pitcher plants, sundews." Morrison looked around at his crew. They were some of the best humanity had to offer, but they were not superhuman. They were tough, yes, but they were ordinary people from ordinary backgrounds. Hayes had grown up on a ranch in Montana. Wright had worked as a paramedic in Detroit before joining the space program. Torres had done field research in the Amazon rainforest. If this challenge seemed easy to them, what did that say about the aliens who created it? The alien message continued with more details about the challenge. Reading between the lines, Morrison got the impression that most species found this test extremely difficult. The message mentioned high fatality rates and the need for extensive technological support. Carter, send a reply, Morrison ordered. Tell them we accept their challenge and will arrive at Kethmore in 2 weeks. Sir, shouldn't we contact Earth first? Torres asked. This is a major decision. Morrison considered this. Communication with Earth took years at their current distance. By the time they got approval and instructions, the aliens might think humanity was not interested. Besides, the challenge did not sound particularly dangerous. His crew had trained for much worse scenarios. We're explorers, Morrison said finally. This is what we came out here to do. If we can't handle a camping trip on an alien world, we have no business being in space. Hayes grinned. A camping trip? I like that, Captain. Mind if I bring some fishing gear? Those alien lakes might have some interesting catches. Wright was still studying the planetary data. This might actually be good for us. The higher gravity will be excellent exercise. The temperature swings will keep us alert. And hunting alien wildlife? That's going to be the adventure of a lifetime. Torres shook her head, but she was smiling. You guys are incredible. We're about to land on an alien death world, and you're talking about it like a vacation. Death world? Hayes laughed. Doc, I've been to summer camp in Louisiana. Bugs the size of your fist, snakes everywhere, humidity you could swim through, and counselors who thought pain built character. This alien planet sounds like a nice break. Morrison watched his crew joke about the challenge and felt a strange sense of pride mixed with worry. Not worry about the planet they were going to visit, but worry about the aliens who thought this planet was dangerous. What kind of worlds had these aliens come from? How soft had their lives been that they considered Kethmore a serious threat? Carter finished sending the reply and turned back to the captain. Message sent, sir. They responded almost immediately. They seemed surprised we accepted so quickly. Surprised? Morrison asked. Yes, sir. They're asking if we're sure we don't want to send robotic probes first, or bring heavy protective equipment, or wait for backup from our homeworld. The bridge crew exchanged glances. Hayes spoke first. Captain, I'm starting to think these aliens have never met anyone from a tough neighborhood. Wright nodded. Or maybe they're just used to dealing with species from easier worlds. Not everyone grows up on a planet where the weather tries to kill you 6 months out of the year. Torres pulled up Earth's environmental data on her screen. Look at this. Earth has temperature ranges from -90 to +70 Celsius. We have hurricanes, tornadoes, earthquakes, volcanoes, tsunamis, blizzards, and droughts. We have deserts that can cook you and Arctic regions that can freeze you solid. Our oceans are full of creatures that could eat us. Our jungles are full of plants and animals that are poisonous. And our atmosphere has enough oxygen to make things explode if you're not careful. And that's just the natural stuff, Hayes added. That doesn't count wars, crime, car accidents, extreme sports, spicy food, or reality television. Morrison realized something important. Earth was not a normal world. Humanity was not a normal species. They had evolved on a planet that was constantly trying to kill them, and they had not just survived but thrived. They had turned their hostile environment into a home, their predators into pets, their challenges into entertainment. The aliens in the Galactic Cooperative clearly came from much gentler worlds. Worlds where survival was easy, where comfort was normal, where the biggest challenge might be running out of their favorite food. Carter, send another message, Morrison ordered. Tell them we'll be there in 2 weeks, and we're looking forward to the challenge. Also ask them if there are any local delicacies we should try while we're there. Local delicacies, sir? If we're going to be camping on an alien world for a month, we might as well enjoy the local cuisine. Who knows? Maybe those carnivorous plants taste like chicken. As the UES Horizon changed course toward Kethmore, Morrison wondered what they were getting themselves into. Not the planet itself, which honestly sounded like a nice place to spend a vacation. No, he wondered what kind of galaxy they were about to enter, full of aliens who thought a mild camping trip was a deadly challenge. This was either going to be very easy, or humanity was about to learn something very important about the difference between surviving and living. The shuttle landed on Kethmore with a soft thud that sent orange dust swirling around the landing site. Captain Jake Morrison stepped out first, breathing the thin air through his basic face mask. The gravity pulled at him harder than Earth. Normal, but it felt good, like wearing a weighted vest during exercise. "Not bad," said Sergeant Ryan Hayes as he jumped down from the shuttle, his equipment pack hitting the ground with a heavy thump. "Reminds me of Arizona, except the rocks." "Are purple?" Dr. Tony Wright took readings with his scanner while engineer Kate Phillips started unpacking their basic supplies. Communications Officer Ben Carter set up a simple radio antenna to stay in contact with their ship. The whole team moved with calm efficiency, like they were setting up camp at a national park high above them, invisible in orbit. Alien eyes watched. Everything, Ambassador Zethkri of the Veltar Consortium, floated in his environmental suit aboard the observation station. His silicon-based body could not survive in most planetary atmospheres, so he always watched these initiation challenges from the safety of space. Usually these challenges ended quickly. Most species lasted 3 or 4 days before calling for emergency evacuation. The humans have been on the surface 6 hours, reported observer Quintal of the hegemony of Frax, his methane-breathing species considered Kethmore absolutely deadly. Even their best environmental suits could only protect them for a few minutes on such a hostile world. Their stress indicators remained surprisingly low. Researcher Yithmol of the Crystalline Collective pulsed with confused energy patterns. As a being of pure energy, physical hardship was completely foreign to the collective. They studied biological species like humans the way humans might study insects. Perhaps their equipment is malfunctioning. No carbon-based life should be this calm in such conditions. On the planet's surface, Morrison's team had already built a basic shelter using rocks and fabric from their supplies. Hayes had found a stream and declared the water safe to drink after basic filtration. Wright was cataloging local plants that might be edible or useful for medicine. "Captain, check this out," Phillips called from near a cluster of the purple trees. She had rigged up a simple device that was measuring electrical activity. "These trees generate natural electrical current. I bet I could tap into this and give us power for our equipment." Morrison walked over to look. The trees did seem to spark occasionally, small bolts of electricity jumping between their metallic-looking leaves. On most worlds, this would be considered extremely dangerous. Phillips was looking at them like they were a useful resource. "Can you do it safely?" Morrison asked. Phillips grinned. "Safer than working on power lines back home? At least these trees don't have angry customers calling to complain when the lights go out." In orbit, the alien observers were becoming increasingly confused. Their instruments showed the humans were not just surviving, they were actually succeeding. Zethkri called an emergency meeting with the other species watching the challenge. "Something is wrong," Zethkri announced to the gathered aliens. "No species has ever shown this level of comfort on Kethmore. The Vrex lasted 8 days, and they are considered one of the hardiest species in the cooperative. The Thullans needed full environmental suits and lasted only 3 days. Quintal's breathing apparatus made worried hissing sounds. Perhaps the humans are hiding their true condition. Many species try to appear stronger than they are during the challenge. "No," said Yithmol, energy patterns flickering with concern. "Our scans show genuine biological calm. Their heart rates are normal. Their hormone levels show no significant stress. If anything, they appear to be enjoying themselves." This was true. Down on the planet, Hayes had just discovered something he found fascinating. A pack of the local predators, Volf-like creatures with 6 legs and crystalline fur, had approached their camp. Instead of running or preparing weapons, Hayes had sat down and started making soft clicking sounds. "What are you doing?" Wright asked, keeping his medical kit ready just in case. "Back home, I raise dogs and horses," Hayes said quietly, still making the clicking sounds. "Predators are predators. They're probably just curious about us." One of the creatures had stopped growling and was tilting its head, listening to Hayes. "See? They're not attacking. They're investigating." Within an hour, Hayes had one of the creatures eating dried food from his hand. The aliens called these predators death hounds and considered them one of Kethmore-esque greatest dangers. Hayes was scratching one behind its crystalline ears while it made a sound that could only be described as purring. "Unbelievable," Morrison said, taking pictures with his camera. "The first human to make friends with an alien species, and it's our security chief befriending something called a death hound." Wright was having his own successes. The plants that alien databases marked as toxic to all known life turned out to be perfectly safe for humans. In fact, several of them tasted quite good when cooked properly. He had found alien fruits that were sweet and nutritious, alien vegetables that could be roasted like potatoes, and alien herbs that made everything taste better. "It's like this planet was designed for us," Wright told Morrison as they shared a meal of alien stew around their campfire. "Everything here is not only safe for humans, it's actually pretty tasty." Phillips had successfully tapped into the electrical trees and now had enough power to run all their equipment plus extra. She was already planning improvements to their shelter. Carter had established clear communication with their ship and was sending regular reports that everything was going better than expected. Up in orbit, panic was beginning to set in among the alien observers. They had been watching species attempt the Kethmore challenge for hundreds of years. Never had they seen anything like this. "Send a message to the Cooperative Council," Zethkri ordered. "We may have a problem. These humans are not behaving like any species we have encountered." Quintal was already composing an urgent report. "What should I tell them? That the humans are succeeding too easily. That they appear to be treating our most difficult initiation challenge like a recreational activity? Tell them we need to review the human homeworld data immediately," Zethkri said. "Something about their planet of origin is not in our files." The problem was that the aliens had never bothered to do a detailed analysis of Earth when they detected humanity's radio signals and space travel. They had simply classified Earth as inhabited world and moved on. Standard procedure was to invite species to join the cooperative and let the initiation challenge weed out those who were not ready. Now they were discovering that this approach had a serious flaw. They had never encountered a species from a death world before. Back on Kethmore, the humans were settling in for their first night. They had built a fire, established a watch schedule, and made their camp comfortable and secure. The Death Hounds had decided to stay nearby, apparently considering the humans part of their pack now. "You know what's funny?" Hayes said as they sat around the fire. "This is actually more comfortable than my last camping trip. At least here I don't have to worry about bears, mosquitoes, or park rangers telling me I can't have a fire." Wright nodded, stirring their dinner. "And the weather's been great. Sure, it got down to -30 last night, but that's nothing compared to Minnesota in January." Phillips looked up from the improvements she was making to their electrical system. "Plus, I've never had access to natural electrical generation while camping. This is like having the world's best RV hookup." Carter was monitoring alien communications as well as their own ship. "Captain, I'm picking up a lot of chatter from the alien observation station. They seem really excited about something." "Excited good or excited bad?" Morrison asked. "Hard to tell. The translation software is having trouble with their emotional context, but they're definitely talking about us a lot." Morrison looked around at his team. In less than 24 hours, they had turned an alien death world into a comfortable temporary home. They had befriended the local predators, figured out the local food supply, solved their power needs, and established secure shelter. They were doing it all with basic equipment and common sense. If this was supposed to be a difficult challenge, Morrison was starting to worry about what that said about the aliens who created it. Were they really that soft? Were their homeworlds Really that easy to live on? What kind of galaxy was humanity about to join? Well, we've got 29 more days here, Morrison said. Let's see what else this planet has to offer. Maybe we can explore those mountains to the east, or check out that Lake Hayes spotted from the shuttle. Hayes perked up. I brought fishing gear. I bet those alien fish put up a good fight. Phillips laughed. I can rig up some lighting so we can work after dark. Maybe build a workshop, improve our shelter. Wright was already planning. I want to map out all the edible species in this area. This could be valuable information for future human colonies. Up in orbit, the aliens listened to these casual conversations with growing alarm. The humans were not just surviving their greatest challenge, they were treating it like a vacation. They were making plans to stay longer, to explore more, to actually enjoy themselves. By the 5th day on Kethmore, word had spread throughout the Galactic Cooperative like wildfire. Emergency sessions were being called on dozens of homeworlds. The impossible was happening. Not only were the humans surviving the challenge, they were thriving in ways that defied everything the cooperative knew about biological life. Intelligence Officer Melkwasi of the Cooperative Central Command had spent 3 sleepless cycles reviewing every piece of data they had about humanity's homeworld. What she found in the classified files made her manipulator arms tremble with fear. Council members, Melkwasi announced to the emergency assembly, we have made a catastrophic error in judgment. The planet these humans call Earth is not listed correctly in our databases. The assembled aliens from 47 different species turned their attention to the central display. When the data appeared, several members made sounds of distress that their translation devices could not properly convert. Earth is classified as a Class 12 death world, Melkwasi continued. The highest possible rating on our danger scale. Our previous classification listed it as Class 3. This was a clerical error made by a junior analyst who misread the atmospheric composition data. Ambassador Zethkri, attending via hologram from the observation station, felt his silicon-based body temperature drop several degrees. Class 12? That is impossible. No intelligent life could evolve on a Class 12 world. Apparently it can, Melkwasi replied grimly. Earth experiences regular global climate disasters. Its weather patterns include rotating storms with winds exceeding 300 kilometers per hour. The planet's surface is 70% covered by liquid water, containing dissolved acids and inhabited by predatory creatures. The landmasses experience regular tectonic activity that creates massive geological instabilities. The council chamber fell silent. Most of the species present had evolved on Class 1 paradise worlds, where the biggest natural disaster might be a light rain shower. Furthermore, Melkwasi continued, the atmospheric composition includes 21% free oxygen, making the entire planet essentially a combustion hazard. The gravity is 1.0 standard, which our records show is the upper limit for sustainable biological development. The temperature variations across the planet range from -89 to +70 Celsius. Observer Quino's breathing apparatus wheezed in panic. Those temperature ranges would kill most known life forms instantly. How do the humans survive? They do not just survive, Melkwasi said. They have populated the entire planet, including regions that would be uninhabitable even with our best technology. They live in areas with active volcanism, regular seismic activity, extreme cold, extreme heat, and violent weather patterns. They appear to consider these conditions normal. On Kethmore, the humans remained blissfully unaware of the panic they were causing. Day 5 had brought their first real challenge. A massive electrical storm was approaching, the kind that usually forced species to take shelter underground for days. Looks like we're going to get some weather, Captain Morrison said, watching. The purple lightning flicker in the distance. Sergeant Hayes grinned as he secured their equipment. Good thing Phillips got that lightning rod system set up. We'll actually be safer than most places on Earth during a storm like this. Engineer Phillips had indeed spent the previous day building a lightning protection system, using local materials and some basic electronics from their supplies. She had also used the opportunity to expand their electrical power collection network. When the storm hit, instead of hiding from it, they would be harvesting energy from it. Storm should be here in about 2 hours, Dr. Wright announced, checking his weather instruments. Winds up to 150 kilometers per hour, temperature dropped to -40, and enough electrical activity to power a small city. Communications Officer Carter looked up from his radio. Should I contact the ship and let them know we might lose communication during the storm? Morrison considered this. No need. The storm's not that bad. We've all worked in worse conditions. Up in orbit, the alien observers were watching the approaching storm with horror. This was exactly the kind of event that had killed candidates from other species. Emergency evacuation protocols should have been activated automatically. Why are they not seeking shelter? Zethkri demanded. The storm will destroy their equipment and possibly kill them. Sir, reported his aide, they appear to be preparing to work in the storm. The engineer is setting up additional equipment outside their shelter. Zethkri could not understand what he was seeing. No civilized species worked outside during electrical storms. Even the hardiest species from Class 2 worlds would take shelter and wait for conditions to improve. When the storm hit Kethmore, it hit hard. Lightning struck the ground every few seconds. Winds howled across the landscape, carrying sand and debris. The temperature plummeted and freezing rain began to fall. The humans continued their daily routine with minor adjustments. They put on heavier coats and rain gear. Hayes brought his pack of deathhounds into their expanded shelter, where they curled up by the fire and seemed perfectly content. Phillips monitored her lightning collection system and reported that they were now generating more power than they could use. This is actually kind of nice, Wright said as he prepared dinner. The storm provided a steady background noise that he found soothing. Reminds me of camping in the Pacific Northwest. Nothing like a good storm to make you appreciate a warm fire and hot food. Carter was monitoring both their communications and the alien observation post. Captain, the aliens are really worked up about this storm. They keep sending us evacuation offers. Evacuation? Morrison laughed. For this? Tell them thanks, but we're fine. Actually, tell them the storm is providing us with excellent power generation opportunities. The response to this message caused what could only be described as chaos on the alien observation station. Several species representatives fainted. Others began making emergency calls to their homeworlds. A few started composing what appeared to be last will and testament documents. They think the storm is providing them with opportunities, Zethkri reported to the Cooperative Council in a voice that his translator rendered as barely controlled panic. Not challenges, opportunities. Back in the council chamber, the emergency session had devolved into pandemonium. Reports were coming in from military commands across the galaxy. Several species were mobilizing their fleets, believing that humans represented an existential threat to galactic civilization. If they can thrive on Class 12 worlds, declared War Commander Thexanol of the Hegemony military, then they can survive on any battlefield. They could invade any of our worlds and we would have no way to stop them. Worse, added Defense Minister Kulmuth of the Centauri Alliance, they could simply wait for natural disasters to weaken our defenses, then attack when we are most vulnerable. They probably consider our worst disasters to be mild weather. Mokwasi tried to restore order. We do not know that they are hostile. Their communications have been polite and cooperative. Of course they are being polite, Vexinol replied. They are studying us, learning our weaknesses. When they reveal their true nature, it will be too late to defend ourselves. The fear was not entirely irrational. Every species in the cooperative had evolved on worlds where cooperation and technology were necessary for survival. They had built their civilization on the principle that intelligence meant overcoming hostile environments through science and mutual aid. Humans appeared to have evolved on a world so hostile that they had become hostile themselves. They did not overcome their environment. They had adapted to thrive in it. To the alien minds, this made them the biological equivalent of a walking natural disaster on Kethmore. The storm was reaching its peak intensity. Lightning was striking Philip's collection array every few seconds, and their power levels were so high that she had to start shutting down equipment to prevent overloads. "We could probably power a small city with this setup," Phillips announced. Happily. Who knew that Deathworld storms were such excellent renewable energy sources? Wright had discovered that several of the local plant species actually grew faster during electrical storms. He was taking notes on their biological processes, thinking about possible applications for Earth agriculture. "Captain, this planet has some really interesting biological adaptations. We could learn a lot from extended study here." Hayes was teaching his pack of deathhounds to play fetch using pieces of storm debris. The creatures seemed to love the game and were competing to bring him the most interesting objects they could find in the storm. Carter continued monitoring alien communications. The amount of chatter had increased dramatically, and much of it was encrypted military traffic. "Captain, I think our alien friends are getting worried about something." Lot of military communications suddenly. Morrison looked around at his team. They were warm, dry, well-fed, and generating enough power to run a small research station. The storm that was supposed to be deadly was providing them with useful resources. His people were not just surviving, they were improving their situation. "Carter, send a message to the aliens," Morrison decided. "Tell them we appreciate their concern, but we are doing fine. Also ask them if extending our stay here would be." 3 weeks into the challenge, the impossible had become routine. What was supposed to be a grueling survival test had turned into humanity's first alien world vacation resort. Captain Morrison's team had not just survived on Kethmore, they had transformed it. Engineer Kate Phillips had built a geothermal power plant using the planet's natural hot springs and some creative engineering with local materials. The facility generated enough clean energy to power a small city. Dr. Tony Wright had established agricultural plots where he grew both Earth crops and alien plants together, creating hybrid gardens that produced more food than either species could manage alone. Sergeant Ryan Hayes had accomplished something that defied every piece of alien biological science. His pack of deathhounds had not only accepted him as their leader, they had learned to work with humans in ways that suggested actual intelligence. The creatures helped with construction, warned of weather changes, and had even learned to operate simple tools. Communications Officer Ben Carter had built a communications relay that could reach their ship, Earth, and intercept alien transmissions from across the local star systems. What he was hearing from those alien signals was getting more disturbing every day. "Captain, we need to talk," Carter said during their morning briefing. "The alien chatter I've been monitoring has changed. It's not just about us anymore. They're mobilizing military fleets." Morrison set down his cup of alien coffee that Wright had discovered and perfected. The beverage was actually better than most Earth coffee and had become part of their daily routine. "Military fleets? For what?" "For us, sir. They think we're an invasion force." The team gathered around Carter's communication station. The intercepted alien transmissions painted a picture of galaxy-wide panic. Species were recalling their exploration vessels. Trade routes were being militarized. Emergency defense protocols were being activated across dozens of star systems. "Listen to this," Carter said, playing a translated transmission from the Veltar Military Command. "All units are to maintain maximum distance from human space." Species designation changed from primitive newcomers to galactic threat level maximum. "Do not engage under any circumstances." Phillips looked up from her engineering reports. "Galactic threat level maximum? What did we do?" "We survived," Wright said grimly. "They think anyone who can live on a death world must be some kind of super soldier species." Hayes scratched behind the ears of his largest deathhound, a creature the aliens had named Destroyer of Worlds, but which Hayes called Buddy. "So they're scared of us because we can go camping without dying." Morrison was beginning to understand the scope of the problem. The Galactic Cooperative had spent thousands of years building a civilization based on avoiding danger. They had created safe worlds, controlled environments, and predictable lives. The idea that someone might actually thrive in hostile conditions was outside their understanding. Carter, try to open a direct communication channel to their command structure, Morrison ordered. We need to clear this up before someone does something stupid. It took 6 hours to establish contact with War Commander Thexanol of the Hegemony. Military. When the channel finally opened, the alien's translated voice carried tones that even the computer recognized as barely controlled terror. Human vessels, maintain your current position and do not advance further into cooperative space. Thexanol commanded. Any aggressive action will result in immediate military response. Morrison appeared on the alien's screen in his simple camping clothes, sitting next to their fire with deathhounds sleeping peacefully around him. Behind him, Phillips could be seen happily working on some kind of construction project, while Wright tended his gardens. War Commander, I think there's been a misunderstanding, Morrison said calmly. We're not an invasion force. We're just 5 people on a camping trip. The alien's response suggested that the translation software was having trouble processing what it was hearing. Finally, Thexanol managed to speak. Camping trip? You are establishing military installations on a Class 12 Deathworld. No, sir, we're just making ourselves comfortable. Would you like a tour of our camp? I think you might be surprised how peaceful it is here. What happened next would be remembered in galactic history as either the bravest or most foolish decision ever made by an alien commander. Thexanol agreed to visit Kethmore in person. The alien fleet that arrived 3 days later was massive. 200 ships carrying the military representatives of 15 different species. They had come prepared for war, but hoping for peaceful contact. Morrison stood at their landing site wearing his best clean camping clothes, flanked by his team and an honor guard of deathhounds that Hayes had trained to sit politely. It was probably the most non-threatening military reception in galactic history. War Commander. Thexanol descended from his flagship in a full environmental suit that looked like it could survive a nuclear explosion. His escort of 50 heavily armed soldiers looked around nervously at what they expected to be a heavily fortified military base. Instead, they found a camp that looked like something from a nature documentary. Solar panels made from alien materials provided clean electricity. Gardens full of food plants grew in neat rows. A workshop where Phillips built useful items from local resources. A medical station where Wright studied alien biology. Even a small recreation area where the deathhounds played games that Hayes had taught them. This is your military installation? Thexanol asked, his voice translator struggling with what sounded like confusion. This is our camp, Morrison replied. Would you like some coffee? Dr. Wright makes excellent coffee from local plants. The next few hours were perhaps the strangest in military history. Alien soldiers, armed and armored for combat, were given tours of human camping facilities. Phillips demonstrated her power generation systems. Wright showed off his agricultural successes. Hayes introduced them to deathhounds who performed tricks and seemed genuinely happy to meet new people. Carter had set up a communication center that was receiving regular updates from Earth. The messages were routine reports about weather, sports scores, and family news. Nothing that sounded like military intelligence or invasion planning. Your homeworld sends you information about recreational activities and personal relationships, observed Intelligence Officer Melquasi, who had joined the expedition. This does not match our understanding of military communications. Because we're not military, Morrison explained patiently. We're explorers, scientists. We came out here to see what was beyond our solar system and maybe make some friends. The breakthrough moment came when a sudden weather emergency struck. Kethmore S star experienced a solar flare that sent deadly radiation across the planet's surface. The alien ships, designed for stable and safe star systems, could not protect their crews from such intense radiation. Without hesitation, Morrison offered shelter in the human camp. Their simple structures, built to handle the planet's regular electrical storms, provided better protection than the advanced alien ships. For 12 hours, 200 aliens crowded into human shelters while radiation levels slowly returned to safe levels. During that time, they experienced something that would change their understanding of humanity forever. The humans shared their food without question. Wright treated alien injuries with the same care he would give to his own teammates. Phillips worked around the clock to expand their power systems to support life support for different atmospheric requirements. Hayes organized games and entertainment to keep everyone calm during the emergency. Carter maintained communication with worried alien families, sending personal messages and updates to ease their fears. Morrison coordinated everything with the calm efficiency of someone organizing a large family gathering rather than managing a crisis. When the radiation levels finally dropped, and it was safe for the aliens to return to their ships, War Commander Thexanol found himself in the unprecedented position of having to thank an enemy for saving his life. "You protected us," Thexanol said, his translator now conveying something that sounded like wonder. "We came here to evaluate you as a threat, and you treated us as guests." "Well, you are guests," Morrison replied. "Anyone who visits our camp is welcome to stay as long as they need to." As the alien fleet prepared to leave, Milkwasi approached Morrison with a question that had been troubling her throughout the visit. "Captain Morrison, your species can survive in conditions that would kill most galactic life. You have technology that can thrive in hostile environments. You could probably conquer most worlds in the cooperative. Why do you not do this?" Morrison looked around at his team and their little camp on the alien world. Hayes was saying goodbye to some of the alien soldiers who had become fond of his death hounds. Wright was sending them home with samples of his hybrid foods. Phillips was giving them copies of her engineering designs for renewable energy systems. Carter was promising to stay in communication with their families. "Why would we want to conquer?" "Anything?" Morrison asked. "We already have everything we need. Good friends, interesting work, new places to explore, and the whole galaxy to learn about. What more could we want?" The alien fleet departed that day carrying a very different message than they had expected. The humans were not a military threat. 6 months after the Kethmore incident, the Galactic Cooperative Council chambers had been completely redesigned. The old circular chamber where species sat in order of technological advancement had been replaced with a more open design. At the center sat Dr. Susan Parker, Earth's newly appointed galactic representative, in a simple chair that looked almost primitive compared to the elaborate hovering platforms and environmental suits around her. The transformation of galactic politics had been swift and dramatic. What started as fear of human military might have evolved into something far more complex. The galaxy had discovered that humans were not conquerors, but they were something equally disruptive to the established order. They were problem solvers. "The economic implications are staggering," announced Trade Minister Vex Kali of the Commercial Federation. "In 6 months, human teams have made 73 previously uninhabitable worlds suitable for colonization. Worlds we had written off as worthless are now producing resources we desperately need." Dr. Parker smiled politely. She had learned that alien representatives preferred detailed presentations with lots of statistics. The teams are just doing what comes naturally. When you grow up on a challenging world, you learn to see opportunities where others see problems. This was an understatement. The human exploration teams that had followed Morrison's pioneering group had transformed the galaxy's understanding of what was possible. Worlds with extreme temperatures were now housing human settlements that exported rare minerals. Planets with violent weather were generating clean energy on unprecedented scales. Even worlds with dangerous native life were becoming research stations and agricultural centers. The humans had not conquered these worlds. They had simply moved in and made themselves at home, often befriending the local wildlife in the process. Ambassador Zethkri, who had recovered from his medical emergency during the storm on Kethmore, stood to address the council. Honored Representative Parker, the Veltar Consortium wishes to formally apologize for our initial assessment of humanity. We realize now that our challenge was not adequate to test your species' capabilities. Actually, Dr. Parker replied, Captain Morrison and his team really enjoyed the challenge. They've asked if they can go back to Kethmore for their vacation time. They want to explore more of the continent and maybe try the fishing in those northern lakes. The council chamber fell silent. Even after months of working with humans, the aliens still struggled to understand a species that treated Deathworlds as recreational destinations. War Commander Thexinol, who had become an unlikely human advocate after his experience on Kethmore, activated his communication system. The military implications are equally significant. Human teams have established outposts in star systems we considered too dangerous to explore. They are providing early warning systems for solar flares, asteroid impacts, and other cosmic disasters that threaten our core worlds. They are also, added Intelligence Officer Melquasi, sharing all their discoveries freely. No territorial claims, no demands for exclusive rights, no military installations. They simply explore, learn, and offer to teach others what they have learned. This had been perhaps the most shocking aspect of human expansion. Every other species in the cooperative had joined seeking access to better technology, safer worlds, or protection from dangers. Humans seemed to join because they were curious and wanted to help. Dr. Parker stood to address the council. Earth would like to propose the formal establishment of the Human Cooperative Partnership. We believe that our different evolutionary backgrounds make us stronger together than either of us could be alone. She activated a holographic display that showed the current state of human-alien cooperation. Human teams were working on 47 different worlds, all at the invitation of alien governments who needed help with environmental challenges. The projects range from disaster relief to terraforming to wildlife conservation. You provide advanced technology, established trade networks, and thousands of years of scientific knowledge, Dr. Parker continued. We provide the ability to work in hostile environments and a fresh perspective on solving problems. Together we can explore parts of the galaxy that neither of our civilizations could reach alone. The proposal was formally accepted by unanimous vote, though several representatives needed medical attention after the excitement of the moment. 2 years later, Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES New Horizons, the first joint human-alien exploration vessel. His crew was a mix of humans and aliens, working together to explore star systems beyond the edge of known space. Admiral, we're approaching the target system, reported his new communications officer Ben Carter, who had been promoted after his excellent work on Kethmore. Long-range scans show 3 potentially habitable worlds. Beside Carter sat Navigator Quintal, the same alien who had once watched humans with terror from orbit. The methane-breathing alien had overcome his species' natural fear of hostile environments to join human exploration crews. His navigational skills, combined with human adaptability, made for an unbeatable exploration team. Any signs of life? Morrison asked. Dr. Lisa Torres, now the chief xenobiologist for the Joint Fleet, looked up from her instruments. Definitely. Biological activity on the second planet. Complex ecosystem, possibly intelligent life. But Admiral, the planet is showing some unusual characteristics, Morrison smiled. After years of working with aliens, he had learned that unusual characteristics usually meant conditions that would challenge even human adaptability. Define unusual, Doctor. Variable gravity fields, electromagnetic storms that make Kethmore look calm, surface temperatures that fluctuate wildly, and an atmosphere that appears to change composition seasonally. Engineer Kate Phillips, now Director of Hostile Environment. Engineering was already running calculations. Sounds interesting? We'll need specialized equipment, but nothing we haven't handled before. Sergeant Ryan Hayes, who had been promoted to Director of Interspecies Relations after his success with the Death Hounds, was checking on the ship's complement of alien wildlife that various species had contributed to their explorations. The Veltar crystal cats are showing interest in the electromagnetic readings. They might be useful for this kind of environment. Morrison looked around at his mixed crew of humans and aliens, all working together to push the boundaries of exploration. The galaxy had become a much more interesting place since first contact. Dr. Torres, any signs that the potential intelligent life on this planet might be hostile? Torres checked her readings again. Actually, Admiral, preliminary scans suggest they might be in distress. The planetary conditions appear to be changing rapidly, possibly due to natural disasters or climate change. Morrison made his decision without hesitation. Set course for the second planet. If there's intelligent life in trouble down there, we should see if we can help. Navigator Quintal made a sound that his translator rendered as surprise. Admiral, should we not study the planet from safe distance first? Establish protocols for contact, plan for potential dangers? Hayes laughed. Quintal, my friend, you've been working with humans for 2 years now. When have we ever done things the safe way? Besides, Phillips added, if they're in trouble, they probably don't have time for us to spend months on safety protocols. As the UES New Horizons changed course toward the unknown world, Morrison reflected on how much the galaxy had changed. The Galactic Cooperative had spent thousands of years building a civilization based on avoiding risk and seeking safety. Humanity had introduced a different philosophy. Sometimes the best way to stay safe was to help others when they were in danger. The ship's intercom crackled to life with a message from their alien partners. Back at Cooperative Central Command. Admiral Morrison, we are receiving your mission. Updates. Are you certain it is wise to approach an unknown world experiencing planetary disasters? Morrison keyed the response himself. Command, this is exactly the kind of situation we're designed to handle. If there's someone down there who needs help, we're going to help them. That's what partners do. Far below them, on a world torn by massive storms and geological upheaval, sensors detected the approaching ship. For the first time in their planet's recorded history, help was coming from the stars. The galaxy was learning that sometimes the best response to danger was not to run away, but to run toward it. And humanity was teaching them that the universe was a much friendlier place when you were willing to lend a hand to those in need. As Admiral Morrison often told new crews during their orientation, we're not explorers because space is safe. We're explorers because space is dangerous and dangerous places need friends. The UES New Horizons continued its descent toward the storm-racked planet, carrying the combined hopes and technologies of dozens of species united in the simple, human belief that no one should face disaster alone.